You are in for such a treat today because do you know, we're going to start with something, a very shocking fact that 37 states allow child marriage in the United States, right here, our own backyards. We are not talking about some far off place. And our Warriors hashtag is community creates change. Genevieve Meyer is doing just this. She is a child bride survivor. She is bravely committed. She dedicates her life to shedding light on these critical issues all surrounding this child marriage, and it's often overlooked. And she continues day in and day out. She is making tremendous strides, significant difference in the United States. She is raising awareness not only about child marriage, but everything that's happening in the communities. We always talk grassroots a lot. You know, it seems so foreign and out of touch, all of these things, but we're going to get down right to it. What this means, what's happening in the landscape in America, what new legislation is on the books, so to speak, as we say at the Warriors. And I want to point out something, Genevieve, if you don't mind. I was reading this morning, you were in People magazine recently. Mm-hmm. And I liked that article because you called it, you know, not just your story, it's a call to action. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're about at the Warriors, taking action. And you said it serves as a reminder of the resilience that lies within us all and the collective power we have to initiate change. By sharing my journey, People magazine has opened a doorway to dialogue, education, and hopefully the advancement of laws and protections for those at risk. Genevieve Meyer is a co-founder and former exec director at the Resiliency Foundation, and now is the Coalition Development Coordinator. So many things going on with you, Genevieve, for the Indiana Trafficking Assistance Program. Today, we are going to discuss child marriage in the United States and the Child Marriage Protection Act of 2024. Please follow Genevieve Meyer on LinkedIn. Where else, Genevieve? Jump in right here. Where else do you want people to follow you? Is LinkedIn the best place?
I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook currently. That's all the platforms I can handle right now.
Okay, there you go. And what I will say is I'll have all of those links in the body of the video so everybody can follow along. So now we get to you, Genevieve. Welcome back to the Warriors, because we have spoken before and I can't wait to speak to you again.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and your Warriors.
Now, because you are a warrior, you understand all of this. Last time we spoke, I don't even remember exactly when it was, but I know we did not have 13 states. It could have been 6, it could have been 8. I don't remember. It's slow going. But you know what? The hashtag, I use it all the time, 18 no exceptions. That's what we talk about. That's very easy for people to understand. Let's review right now, before we get into the legislation, what is the landscape currently in 2024 surrounding child marriage in the U.S.?
Sure. So across our country, every state can mandate their marriage requirements. And from a broad view, it looks like most states are, you can't get married unless you're 18. But if you look under the hood a little more, you see that there's a lot of different exceptions. So there's an exception if a judge grants the marriage license. There's an exception if parents sign off on it. There's an exception if the child's emancipated. And after you get through all these exceptions, there's actually several states that have no minimum age to marry. And so what you have is this broad difference from state to state. So California is an example of that. They don't have a minimum age to marry after all of these exceptions. We've proposed legislation numerous times. It's been shot down. In the state that I live in, Indiana, you have to be minimum 16. Not really where I like it at 18. But what we've done is we've closed that loophole of older men marrying much younger girls, which is something we saw before. So case of what happened to me when I was married at 15 to somebody that was 43 years old so that he could avoid prosecution and criminal charges. That can't happen in my state. The youngest you can be is 16. You can't marry anybody 4 years older than you, and there's safeguards. You have a guardian ad litem that's appointed to you to advocate for your best interest. This is different protections. Do we want to have to get things all complicated? No, it would be a lot easier if it's 18, no exceptions. But that's the legal landscape across the country right now.
Let me, I want to go back on something because I find myself trying to explain this one and I want your clarification as our expert in this field. You know, I will use as an example the state of California, right? Now, when I say to them, there's no, you know, I try to explain that whole thing, no real floor for it. They really don't understand me. I don't know if you've ever come across that. They're like, what do you mean? So just go over that point because I want our warriors to really understand what's going on here. Just let's use the state of California right now as the example.
Right. So I'll actually go back to my example. Perpetrators and predators, they know the laws better than the average, person, American citizen, and they use that to their advantage and they state shop. So when the people in my life were trying to force this marriage on me, they venue shopped. So they tried the state of California, and that particular clerk said no, but a judge in Mississippi said yes. And it's similar in Utah, similar in the other states that we visited. So it's not only state to state, but can be judge and jurisdiction to judge and jurisdiction. So that's what we have in the issue there. You may have a judge that looks at this and says, no, this is not in the best interest of the child. I'm not going to grant this marriage license. But you may have another judge that's like, oh, this person's coming from a bad home life and maybe this will be better. If that's what we're offering to get children out of bad home lives, to marry them and put them in another, situation they can't escape from, then as a society, we're failing our children.
It's interesting you brought that up because I've heard that story here in New York.
Mhm.
They'll be better off, and then of course we talk about the education and getting pregnant and not having, job skills and then being left domestic violence, and then you're
Mhm.
met with the blank looks,
Mhm.
as you well know. Let me ask you another question, actually. Let's see if I can make sense of this one. So it's done state by state.
Mhm.
Why? It seems sort of like a no-brainer to me. I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. Why is there no federal um, mandate legislation, something? Because it seems like a minor is a minor, and anything with a minor is criminal. But call me wacky, Genevieve.
Well, our democracy is set up that way so the federal government can't overpower the states. So that's one of those areas that this type of legislation falls in, that the federal government can set one standard and the states can either adopt it or modify it. So that's why we're having to go state to state. What we can do at the federal level is we can set an example that, this is the direction that we're moving. 18, no exceptions, get on board, get with it, right? That acknowledges even that we have a problem in the United States, because as of right now, we don't have any federally funded studies that have looked at the prevalence and the impacts of child marriage. None.
There's none. Our government has done. You're telling me they've done zero.
Zero.
Do you find that shocking? Because I find that beyond shocking.
I find that very shocking. I work in human trafficking, all forms of human trafficking,
Right.
building coalitions and task force. So I'm very familiar with legislation. And the numbers that we've looked at to establish funding and study and task force for other forms of trafficking exploitation, those numbers are right up there with child marriage. So one private study through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, in partnership with Unchained at Last, showed that 300,000 minors were married between 2000 and 2022. Those are staggering numbers. If you compare that to the numbers of the human trafficking hotline, they're much higher.
Unbelievable. Geez, I gotta light more fire and help you here because I find that shocking that I'm just gonna throw this out there. The women in our Congress are I mean, they're working on it. Some are doing that, but you think they'd want to step up about this issue in particular. Where are our women fighting for our girls? Well, I'm just gonna leave that one. That's for another program. Okay. Now, I I want to hear about your job as the Coalition Development Coordinator for the Indiana Trafficking Assistance Program. Explain. I want people to really understand, like, what do you do? Give us a day in the life. What do you
I
do?
have the best job ever. I love what I do. It's
Good.
amazing. So yeah, I'm the statewide coalition development coordinator through the Indiana Trafficking Victims Assistance Program. So I have all the acronyms, and that program is under an organization called Indiana Youth Services Association, which is a youth serving supporting organization. What I get to do is I get to bring people together in different regions and areas of our state, come together at a multidisciplinary level. So that means a combination of law enforcement, service providers, business leaders, general public, and just take a look at what's happening in our communities and establish and build a response to either educate the communities about what's going on, equip people to prevent trafficking, because it's really great if we can prevent bad things from happening to begin with. And then unfortunately, if we do have victims of human trafficking, really responding with efficiency and excellence to those cases. So supporting the victim with the services that they need, as well as supporting law enforcement and prosecutors with what they need to send a message and get these people off the streets.
Now, let me ask you something. So, really, child marriage could be considered human trafficking. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the entire human trafficking movement as we have it today in the United States was founded on people realizing that the mail order bride thing wasn't really funny. It wasn't a casual thing. That what you had is you had people coming from other countries that were forced, by force, fraud, or coercion, coming in, entering into marriages in countries they weren't even part of. And it's very similar to what we have doing now, except it's children that are being brought in from other countries and married in the United States, as well as domestically. So US citizens, children are being put in forced and arranged marriage. So it's fraud, force, or coercion, which is the same as trafficking.
We want to make sure everybody really understands because, also, Genevieve, people, I just had somebody ask me this morning, what exactly, Lynn, is human trafficking? They still kind of get tripped up because, it has all those tentacles. It has a lot of different ways it can go. And there's so much going on with that right now. Would it be fair to say, Genevieve, there is that a lot of criminal element marrying girls so that they can basically farm them out, traffic them, sell
Mm-hmm.
them as a business to make, because we know when it comes to a dollar, that's what counts, right?
Mm-hmm.
What have you encountered? What can you tell us about that?
Unfortunately, there's so many different ways to human beings exploit other human beings. Through marriage specifically, we absolutely have seen that where somebody, a minor or an adult, is married. We see that so often just in trafficking situations. I can't tell you how often we have people that are trafficked that are married to their traffickers. And that's part of that forced fraud or coercion power dynamic. This person loves me, they're married to me, it's a commitment here, things are going to get better. If I just keep doing what they want, things will get better. That is very common. A lot of those cases actually show up. They don't even realize what has happened to them is considered
Yeah.
trafficking. They reach out for services for domestic violence and sexual assault. So it's actually pretty rare that we come across a victim that's like, I'm a victim of human trafficking, and these are the services that we need. They come in through other avenues and in needing of other services, and we respond with them right there. What do you need right now? And then we move down the road. But that's why it's important to have that multidisciplinary approach and have everybody trained and screening and understanding those red flags of trafficking exploitation, because it might be deeper than that victim even knows because of the brainwashing, the gaslighting, and the coercion.
And as you pointed out, like, they don't understand indicators. They don't understand they're trafficked. We come across that a lot in New York. They don't believe it. They don't know it. They don't want to hear from it. And good. I like this multidisciplinary. That is exactly. I call it, the Genevieve, the big wheel with a lot of spokes, and we need all the spokes to make the wheel go round.
Absolutely.
It sounds a little elementary, but that's how I try to explain it to people. Like, it can't just be one thing, one thing. People can't work alone. Really has to be true collaboration if we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna. We can't keep slapping band-aids. We have to heal
Absolutely.
and provide, but we also have to get in there and prevent.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you something. We're going to get into the legislation, but as I listen to you talk, and you're such a brave face, and sharing your story and wanting to help others, and you're so passionate, and it completely shines through. So thank you for that, because there are a lot of people that I feel don't have passion. And how can you work in any of this if you don't have passion? But your passion, I'm telling you, shines completely through. So thank you for that. How do you take care of yourself? Because it's not easy just day in and day out. If you want to share this with us, it's tough. It's tough. Like, I keep going all the time, but sometimes I stop and think about a
Mm-hmm.
baby or something and then it makes me work harder because I'm a warrior. But how do
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a victim of trafficking or a child bride, but you actually lived that. How do you now take care of yourself?
Well, I definitely focus on the wins. It's not every day that somebody's able to take really horrific circumstances and pain that they went through and repurpose that into something positive. And being able to speak out, being able to raise awareness, having that catalyst to change systems. When I see that happening, that's really amazing. It's been well documented that the first half of my life was really challenging and really sucky. But the last half has actually been pretty good. I've been married to my husband for almost 18 years now.
Yay.
We've raised children, we have a quiet life in the country. It's very simple out here. So, my house is in order. I think that helps a lot. I have a fantastic support system. People support what I'm doing, and they also hold me accountable for taking care of myself, just those stressors that you can breathe. And then understanding that, we are doing really hard, difficult work. And so sometimes you do need to take a step back. I have standing appointment with a therapist, not so much that I'm working through anything, but just to have that lifeline there and to be able to talk about things I can't really talk about, without anybody else due to confidentiality. So just having those support mechanisms there. But ultimately, as long as I feel like what I am doing and sharing my story is actually moving the needle and driving change, I will continue to do what I do. And if I feel like it's not, then I may step back and do something different. But as of right now, all I see is change, 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 and literally making the world a better place.
And I just see it giving you power, like, because you are doing such good work, you are making such headway that I feel like it empowers you to keep going, things like
Thank you.
that. Well, good for you because you're doing such excellent work. Now let's talk about this Child Marriage Protection Act of 2024, introduced in early August. What can you tell us? Lay it out for us. What's going on with this?
Yes, we are very excited about this legislation. It's been a long time coming through a lot of conversations. So just the main points of this legislation is we are looking at setting a marriage age of 18, no exceptions at the federal level. Where that can be enforced is in federal buildings, federal land, and military bases. And it sets a message of we are moving towards an 18, no exception, get on board, follow along. It also establishes and gives funding to states who either have addressed child marriage in their community or have not addressed child marriage in their community. It gives them some funding and guidance and resources to be able to do that. Currently, there is nothing like that. So, looking at your state and do we need to raise awareness of child marriage? Often that's the case. People just aren't aware. They think it only happens in other countries. They don't understand what's happening here in the United States. And then also, it's been happening for a while. So there are victims out there, and there may be child brides that are trying to escape their situation, that are trying to get resources, but they might necessarily understand that the resources they have know what they're talking about or that it even exists. So, having some funds and having some technical support to update domestic violence shelter screening tools and things like that to be able to educate the public of what's going on, let survivors know that we do understand there's help and there's resources out there. I think that's great. I'm also taking a look at, having actual federally funded study to take a look in our
Yes.
country at child marriage. We know what's happening in other countries and we're very part of that. And we, shake our finger at, you shouldn't do that, while we're completely ignoring what's happening in our own backyard of having some states that have absolutely no minimum age. And so you do have those really exploitive relationships of, 14-year-olds marrying middle-aged men. Of the 300,000 minors that got married in that 22-year period, most of them are young girls married to much older men, right? And when you have a child married to an adult, there's a power imbalance that invites domestic violence, that invites abuse. That child's education is going to be interrupted. They're going to have limited opportunities. They're going to be incredibly vulnerable, possibly for the rest of their lives, right? And there's just no reason for that. Another thing, if they're a child trapped in a marriage, it's very possible they can't get themselves unmarried. They might not be able to access domestic violence shelters or other services because they are still a child, even though they're married. No lawyer is going to enter into a contract with them. So it's something that's hidden, but something that's very pervasive. So it'd be wonderful to actually have our federal government acknowledge it and take a look at what the prevalences are and follow up on what the outcomes are. Up to 80% divorce rate. These are not successful relationships. This is not a solution for anyone. Another area that we're looking at is the spousal visa loophole. Now, this is something that people find really shocking. I don't know if you're aware, but a U.S. citizen, there's no minimum age to petition for a spousal visa for a spouse to come over from another country.
Now, back up. You got to explain this one because this seems a little shady to me,
It's very shady.
as we say.
It's very shady. So let me give you an example. What that might look like is you may have a 15-year-old girl that has U.S. citizenship and her parents and guardians in the background may fly for a spousal visa for somebody that they've never even met, not even have anything what's going on in another country. That person comes over and voila, you're married.
So, now wait a minute. So, I'm really not understanding that. It seems like such it's right in front of us. You know what I'm saying? It just seems so illegal. It just seems so wrong. It's just so blatant. It's such a criminal move that I cannot believe there's not more being done about this. And I just want to go back before I forget, because my mind's exploding with all of this talk from you, Genevieve. I sit here and the UN is my neighbor. And it's always, women and girls and empowerment, this and that. And I do say to myself, look what's happening to our American girls, our young women. The focus you pointed out, it's always, you said something like, we're always telling other countries what to do. Well, I threw that in. You know what I mean? We're always
Mhm.
giving advice, or we're always worrying about, or we're always having reports about other countries. And it's right here. And
Mhm.
that's what I find the most shocking of all. And I'm stuck on, we don't have any study even.
Mhm.
That is unbelievable. That going hand in hand with human trafficking, sexual exploitation, there would not be, a companion study about this branch of this human trafficking.
Absolutely.
That's
I completely agree.
absolutely shocking. But I know on your watch, you're gonna get that all going. Now, what is, and it's, I want to say this is all bipartisan work,
Mhm.
belongs to no political party. Everybody, if there's something everybody can get on board with, it is, unfortunately, but the human trafficking, the exploitation, the child bride issue,
Mhm.
because these are human rights abuses affecting everybody. You may not have a child or a daughter, you have a family member. What is, what I want to ask you though, what if it's, you pointed out about a lawyer. Well, an underage, under 18 can't even enter into a contract, with a
Correct.
lawyer. When somebody's 15, it's funny because I asked a couple of different people in the past when they were 14, 15, did anybody say anything to you being old, married to an older man? Like they told me, no, nobody ever said anything to me when I would be in a store, I'd be in a playground. Two of them had babies at the time, but obviously little girls, when you looked at their pictures, women now, and they said people never talked to them or approached them about anything. Were you ever, if I may ask this, did anybody ever say anything to you? Or because I would think very strange if I saw a 14-year-old with, I'll just say, a 50-year-old man.
Mhm.
I might have to say something.
Yeah, child marriage is so incredibly isolating. A lot of people don't know what to do. I mean, even social service providers don't even know what to do in those situations. You're removed from school. All of a sudden, you're not participating in any kind of extracurricular activities or those normal adolescent experiences. No parents are going to let their kids hang out with you. You're a social outcast, and oftentimes you're discarded by your family as well. Because a lot of the times, especially in my case, I was into that because I was basically a throwaway child. I came from difficult situations. My mother was mentally ill. There was drug use. There was alcoholism. Nobody, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up when I was younger, I wasn't sure I even wanted to grow up. I had no prospects. I had no future. I had nothing to hold on for. So I just went along with what my life kept handing me. And that's not unique to me. Nowadays we have the Resiliency Foundation. One of the reasons why I established that was to provide a community for child marriage survivors. And all of us, the stories are exactly the same. There's some child marriage survivors in there that don't even have reading proficiency because their education, ended so early. And it really is, you're just basically, in my case, I was some pedophile's prize.
Okay. First of all, I'm sorry you had to go through all of this. I mean, no child should have to endure this kind of abuse. So I apologize, because no adult should do that to any child. Um, but obviously, if there's any good news to come out of this, is how powerful you are and such a leader in ending this child marriage. So, I mean, God bless you. I say that from my heart. It's amazing. Tell us about this legislation a little bit more. Where does it stand right now? And how can the public help? Because we always want the public to get involved, take action. We want to hand them something easy to sign off on or donate a few bucks. So first, tell us about where it's headed,
Mhm.
what we need to do.
Sure. So it has been introduced in the US Senate, and hopefully it will move along and pass out of the US Senate and then get over to the House, where it will have equal numbers of bipartisan sponsors that will help encourage it and move it through. So what the public can do right now is they can contact their federal legislators, both Senate and House, and tell them that, to support the Child Marriage Prevention Act. It's time that we close these loopholes that are exploiting girls and children in our country, and it's time to do it now. We can't wait any longer.
Mm-mm. I'll put that all in, what this bill is. It's, Senate, it's the bill number 4990. It's going to all be in there. So everybody can take their time, read it, click
Mhm.
on where they can contact, their representatives. Let me ask you something. Give us some final words, because I want to speak to you also. I hope we get to speak. We should be speaking more often about this as things move along, to really keep it at the forefront. It's such an
Mhm.
urgent issue. Give us some final words that you really want everybody to understand about all of this, because we always want that goal, Genevieve, of somebody is really moved after they hear somebody like yourself speak about this, so they'll take action. I can't repeat it enough. I'm a broken record about the take action. We know things are bad, we know, but there's a lot of good happening. For instance, this is perfect, Child Marriage Protection Act. It's moving forward. When something moves forward, I call it perfect, okay? Even though
Mhm.
perfect's not a good word, but moving forward to me is perfect as opposed to stalling or nothing's happening. So drive it home for us. Give us some final words. What you want people to know, what you really want them to do, and how do you want them to react? What if they saw somebody on a playground? Like, what would you advise for them to do? Like, because nobody wants to get involved in things. And the floor is yours.
Sure. So it's such an isolating experience. I think to start with, just to have a person who cares, start there. Hey, what's going on? Do you have someone? I'm happy to be someone for you, even if you can't legally navigate them out of that relationship, or even if they don't think they have any options to get out. There's definitely resources across the country. Tahare Center for Justice does amazing work. There's a lot of local organizations, like there's DIA Agency out of Houston, Texas, and some other organizations in the Bay Area. Resiliency Foundation, we're happy to help you out. Also, your human trafficking task force and coalitions across the state. If you're involved in a human trafficking task force or coalition, ask them if they have provisions or understand how to respond to these child marriage and forced marriage cases. If they don't, there's plenty of technical assistance and information to help them get up to speed. Minors being married is hiding in plain sight. It's a really awful thing to think about. It's really difficult to think about. And I know I can be sometimes really blunt and a little jarring, but we just can't sugarcoat it anymore. It is really as horrible as it sounds. And it really is hidden. And we need to raise awareness that it really is an issue in our country. And we need to roll up our sleeves and get to work to end it by passing this federal legislation, by contacting your local and state representatives and saying, hey, what is going on in our state? Why are we allowing 15-year-olds to get married to whoever? Really take a look at what's going on in your state, what your state's laws are, and reach out to your legislators and have that conversation of how come we're not fixing this? Why are we allowing children to suffer like this?
Why don't we have a study? why, and who says you're blunt? Let me at them, because this is the information we need. Reality,
Mm-hmm.
right? We always need the survivor voice, the warrior voice, right? Like, this is what it is. So blunt is good. I don't think you're blunt. You're telling the truth. You're telling what it is. You're sharing, again, very bravely, I say, your lived experience, and how I'm just in shock about all of this. And I know about it now through you and talking to you, before this, obviously, and reading about it and being part of trafficking. But I find it so shocking that there's no protection for these girls being put into these relationships. Where are all the feminists? I'm sorry. Like, I'm in the middle of New York City. We're involved in lots of bipartisan stuff. And I do ask the question, to be met with blank looks, where are the feminists for
Yeah,
these type of issues? Because I don't see them. Maybe you see them in Indiana. I'm not seeing them here in the middle of New York City. Mm-mm.
it's a mixture, but we can't champion gender equality while ignoring child marriage.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to load up this video, the body of it, with everything. Okay.
Wonderful.
And all the different resources too that people can click on and help and things like that. What's up next for you? Just tell me before I jump on you. I know this is your passion and all that, but could you give us a hint? Is there anything percolating we need to know about?
So we're just fine tuning systems, raising awareness that child marriage is an issue, getting legislation passed, and then also that backup. There's a lot of things that are illegal, but people still figure out a way to get it done
Yeah.
and continue to harm folks. So making sure that coalitions and task force across the country are aware of this issue, can respond to it, and can prevent it.
Well, Genevieve Meyer, I can't say enough good things about you. Let us speak again soon. Please keep us aware of everything happening so we can promote it. We can let the public know about all of this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being this shining example of a warrior and really taking this on and educating people and sharing your story. I want everybody to follow you. Again, I'll have your LinkedIn, I'll have your Twitter, Facebook, all of that stuff. And again, anything we can do at the Warriors to help you, we are your biggest cheerleaders. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today. And let us speak again soon.
All right. Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Genevieve. Talk soon.